Every single morning, my patience was tested before I even started my car. There it was again, that shiny black sports car, parked diagonally across my driveway like it owned the street. The owner, Karen's spoiled son, Ryan. The same Ryan who thought HOA rules didn't apply to him because his mom was the president of our neighborhood association. At first, I tried to handle it the right way. I knocked on Karen's door and said politely, "Hey, could you please ask your son not to block my driveway again? I've got work every morning." She gave me that trademark Karen smirk, the kind that makes your blood boil, and replied, "Well, maybe you should wake up earlier. He's a teenager. He can't just keep moving his car every time you need to leave." I clenched my jaw but kept my cool. I decided to give them a chance. The next day, same thing. The car was right there again. Horns, calls, texts. Nothing worked. Ryan even waved at me from their porch once, laughing like it was all a joke. By the third day, I'd had enough. I went to the HOA office, thinking surely someone would make her follow the rules. But the woman behind the desk whispered, "Sir, she is the HOA. Nobody wants to go against her." That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just ignoring me. She knew exactly what she was doing. Her son was deliberately blocking me to prove that I couldn't touch them. That evening, I came home from work, and guess what? The car was blocking me again. The sight made my hands tremble with anger. I stood there, staring at that shiny hood, the way the sunset reflected off it like a mirror mocking me. Inside, something snapped. This wasn't about a car anymore. It was about respect, or the lack of it. I whispered to myself. "All right, Ryan, you want to play games? Let's play." I went inside, shut the blinds, and started planning. The next morning, I didn't even need to check outside. I already knew that black car would be sitting there like a middle finger aimed at my sanity. But something felt different that day. I wasn't angry. I was done. I opened my curtains and, sure enough, there it was. Ryan was leaning on the hood, scrolling through his phone, sipping an energy drink like he was guarding his territory. I stepped outside slowly, keeping my tone calm. "Ryan," I said, "move your car. I've got work." He looked up, smirked, and said, "You can drive around it, old man." That's when I realized he wanted me to lose my temper. He wanted a reaction, and I wasn't going to give it to him. Not yet. Instead, I just nodded. "Got it," I said quietly, and went back inside. But inside my chest, my heart was pounding like a war drum. My patience was gone. Every ounce of decency I had left had been tested. That night, while scrolling through my neighborhood Facebook group, I noticed something interesting. Someone had posted about a new city ordinance. Vehicles blocking driveways could be reported directly to the towing department. No HOA involvement required. A grin spread across my face. For the first time in days, I slept peacefully. The next morning, 6:30 a.m. sharp, I was ready. I made my coffee, stood by the window, and watched Ryan's car pull up again. He parked the same way, slammed the door, and walked inside laughing. 10 minutes later, I dialed a number. "City Towing Department." "Yeah, there's a vehicle blocking my driveway. Plate number 4XK92, black sports car. Been happening for days." The operator replied, "Sir, we'll be there within the hour." I didn't even blink. I waited. When the tow truck arrived, the clank of metal chains was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The driver looked at me and said, "This the one?" I nodded. Within minutes, Ryan's precious car was being dragged away, tires squealing, alarms blaring. I watched from my porch with my coffee cup raised like a victory toast. An hour later, Karen stormed across my lawn, her face red, hair wild, screaming, "You can't do that. That's harassment. I'll have you kicked out of this neighborhood." But I just smiled and said, "Call the HOA, Karen." "Oh wait, that's you, isn't it?" Her jaw dropped. For once she had no words. That should have been the end, but it wasn't. Because Karen and her son weren't about to let me have the last laugh. For 2 whole days after the tow truck incident, the street outside my house felt peaceful. No blocked driveway, no smug laughter, just silence, the kind that feels like victory. But peace never lasts long when you're living near Karen. On the 3rd morning, I walked outside to grab my newspaper, and there she was, standing on her porch with her arms crossed, glaring at me like a villain in a movie. Ryan stood beside her, sulking, his car keys jingling in his hand. I didn't think much of it until that afternoon when I noticed a bright yellow envelope stuck to my front door. HOA violation notice, unauthorized driveway alterations. I frowned. What alterations? I hadn't even changed a flower pot. Then I saw the list. Unapproved fencing, non-compliant trash bin placement, overgrown shrubs. It was pure nonsense. Karen had made it all up. I marched over to her house, knocked once, and before I could say a word, she smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, it's nothing personal, just enforcing community standards, you understand." Behind her, I could see Ryan grinning again, clearly proud of his mother's revenge. I took a deep breath, forcing a calm smile. "Karen," I said, "you've already crossed the line. You don't want to make this worse." Her smile sharpened. "Worse? Honey, I am the HOA. I decide what worse means." She slammed the door in my face. That night, I sat on my porch with my laptop, reading through the HOA bylaws. My anger had cooled. Now it was something else. Focus. If she wanted to play legal, I'd play smarter. I found something interesting. Any HOA president caught using their authority for personal retaliation could be removed by majority vote. I needed proof, and I needed allies. The next morning, I started talking to neighbors. The same ones who'd been quiet for months out of fear. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd targeted. She'd fined old Mrs. Jenkins for painting her mailbox too red. She'd threatened a young couple for having too many guests. By evening, I had 5 signatures for a petition to hold a special HOA meeting to review her conduct. Karen must have sensed it, because later that night, I heard shouting outside. Ryan again. He'd parked across my drive one more time, his headlights glaring into my living room. It was like a challenge, but this time I didn't call the tow truck. I walked outside slowly, stood in front of his car, and smiled. "Enjoy your last night parking here, kid. Tomorrow, everything changes." The next day, the neighborhood buzzed like never before. Word had spread. The residents were finally standing up to Karen. By evening, the community hall was full. Every chair was taken, every face tense but eager. Even the people who never left their homes showed up. Karen strutted in like she owned the place, heels clicking, clipboard in hand, and that fake smile plastered across her face. Ryan followed behind, chewing gum, acting like this was some kind of game. She stood at the front and said sweetly, "I understand there have been misunderstandings, but as HOA president, my job is to maintain standards, not to make friends." That line did it. People started murmuring, shaking their heads. I stood up slowly and placed a stack of papers on the table. "Then maybe," I said, "you should explain why you've been sending fake violation notices to your neighbors, and why your son's car keeps blocking people's driveways." Her face went pale. I held up my phone. "Because I have video proof. I'd installed a small camera in my front window the night before. It had recorded Ryan parking across my driveway again, laughing into the camera, and Karen coming out later, whispering, 'Good, keep doing it. He needs to learn his place.'" The room went silent. Then one by one, neighbors began to speak up. Mrs. Jenkins. She fined me for having flowers in my yard. Mr. Patel. She called the cops on my guests for parking too long. Another voice. She made my kids cry over Halloween decorations. The tension burst like a dam. Finally, the vice president of the HOA, a quiet man named Harris, stood up and cleared his throat. By community rule, a special vote can remove a president found guilty of abuse of power. Hands went up across the room, almost every single one. Karen shouted, "You can't do this! I am the HOA!" But Harris calmly replied, "Not anymore." Her clipboard slipped from her hands. Ryan stood frozen, jaw clenched, realizing his mother had just lost everything she used to control. As I walked out of the hall, she glared at me through tears and hissed, "You'll regret this." I turned back with a grin. Already did. That's why I fixed it. A week later, the HOA issued an apology to the entire neighborhood. And guess who was appointed as the new president? Harris nominated me. The first rule I changed? No resident shall block another's driveway or face immediate towing. Sometimes justice doesn't come with sirens or handcuffs. Sometimes it comes with patience and a tow truck. If you enjoyed this crazy HOA drama, don't forget to smash that like button and make sure to subscribe to Karen Diaries, because the next story is going to be even wilder. Hit the bell so you never miss any of the chaos. Now tell me, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done to Karen and her son? Drop your answer in the comments below.